Good morning, friends. Today I will be dealing the topic as spoken in the earlier video, that is virus. Friends, we all know that virus or virons, we may call a single cell as a virons. Viruses are a very small organism in this world. It is much more smaller than bacteria also. Viruses ranges about 20 to 250 nanometer in their size. They have different types of shapes. Now, talking about the general characters of viruses, initially the question arises whether the virus is living organism or non-living organism. But actually it lies between these two. We can't say it is living organism or whether it is non-living thing. We all know that viruses are obligate parasite. What do you mean by obligate? Obligate means the organism which survive on the other life. It means the virus needs the support of the other life for its replication. Viruses cannot grow on itself. Viruses cannot produce the foods. They are acellular organisms. They do not produce their food like the plants. They cannot reproduce or replicate without having the support of the host cell. They need the host cell, the virus inert in it. It mutates the host cell and the virus completes its life cycle in the host cell. Focusing on the view of the history of the virus, none of the ancestors of the viruses are known. Nobody is clear regarding how this virus notate, how these viruses evolved in this world. But there are the evidences, there are the some scientists who have invented the existence of virus in this world. Now, the scientist known as Chamberlain, he was the microbiologist in 1884, and the filter named as Chamberlain filter was prepared and used for the filtration of the bacterial solution. But While extracting or filtering the TMV solution, tobacco plant solution, the virus was introduced in 1886 by Adolf, the scientist, who was an American scientist. He saw the particles from the solution of this TMV was seen in this viruses solution. Adolf was the first man to introduce the viruses or the virus, or we may also call viron, in the world. Now, the origin of the virus exists wherever life is there. Probably existed since living cells first evolved. Viruses have the structure and the chemical constituent of the virus is DNA or RNA. It may single stranded or it may be double stranded. Friends, we all are aware of these viruses, how these viruses causes different types of diseases to the organisms. Viruses are also classified. They are not localized in a systematic kingdom system, but they are classified on the basis of the occurrence of the host. When the virus infects the plants, then they are to be known as plant viruses. When in animal, when the infection is seen of the viruses or the virus which infects the animal are to be called as animal viruses. Some of the viruses infects the bacterial cell. Then they are to be called as bacteriophage. Friends, we know the virus term is derived from the Latin word that is means known as poison or venom. Initially I talked about the Adolf Meyer in 1886. He was the man who observed the virus in the tobacco plant, and the symptoms on that plant were seen as a mosaic system. That means the venations of the plants become somewhat yellow and the midribs and the veins become rough in the structure. That is known as tobacco mosaic virus. This organism is ultra microscopic organism and which is a infectious agent. Actually, this virus metabolically inhert the host cells which interferes the living host cells, which interferes the metabolic activity and inert the cells and complete its life process in that host cell or in the host organisms. Now, we all know that these viruses are the obligate intracellular parasite. What do you mean by obligate? Obligates means the organism which needs which needs support to survive of the other living organism. Here, the virus has its mode of living organism. When virus enters the living host or the other cells, its interfere or this virus become mutated with the genome of the host cell. It is unable to produce its energy or protein like the plants. It is completely dependent on the host cell. Regarding the replication or the reproduction of the cells, the virus cannot reproduce outside the host cell. It has to replicate in the host cell, and it used the host cell as a machinery. Now the question arises whether the viruses are living things or we may call them non-living things. But they lie between these. If we call them non-living things, while entering the host cells, they become active and they complete their life process by interfering the metabolic process of the host cells. But they have their own genetic material, either RNA or DNA. It may be single-stranded or double-stranded. Cells of virus cannot be divided, likely the cells of plants or some organisms, but the cells or the genome of the virus get mutated in the host cell. The virus can be killed or can be cleared by the ultraviolet rays. Why the viruses are assumed to be non-living? Because they lack a cellular structure. They cannot make a process of respiration like the other plants. They cannot move like other organisms from one place to another place. They are unable to grow like plants, animal like us. So these things, these views are making us as the virus to be a non-living thing. Now, where is the habitat? What is the habitat of this virus? They are unable to survive without the host cell. So, active viruses get resides in the host body. Well, habitat of the virus is the plant cell, animal cell, as well as bacterial cell. For example, in plant cell, earlier I spoke regarding the tobacco plant. In tobacco plant, you see the tobacco mosaic virus. Whereas in animals, we all know that the HIV virus, we know the rabies virus, we know the polio virus, and the bacteriophages. So these are the habitat of the virus. Viruses are very, very nano in size. Those are also not microscopic, and we are unable to see with our naked eyes. The viruses can be observed only under the electron microscope or transmitted electron microscopy. The size of the viruses varies from 2 20 to 1400 nanometer, and the poliovirus seems to be very small virus, that is 30 nanometer, and the giant virus is up to 800 nanometer. There are various types of virus according to their shapes. We have also heard about the Ebola virus. Ebola virus has a shape of 970 nanometer, whereas viroid is of 300 nanometer. Regarding the tobacco mosaic virus, the size is of 250 nanometer. Rhinovirus is of 30 nanometer. Adenovirus is of 90 nanometer, and bacteriophage is of 225 nanometer, followed by the rabies virus, which is of 170 nanometer. This was the size of the viruses. Well, viruses has the different shapes according to the host they infects. They are rod shapes. Rod shapes means elongated shapes, somewhat tapering to the one ends. Bullet shapes, having a tapering end on the both the sides. Filament shapes, and isohedral shape, followed by tadpole shape. In isohedral, you see the head is of the hexagonal shape, and the tail is to be seen in the hedral shape. Now, talking about the structure of the virus, which consists of a nucleic acids and a protein. Genome of the virus or the nucleic acid is covered by protein coat that is called as capsid. Some viruses has envelope outside the capsid, and the viruses which does not have the capsid or envelope, they are known as the naked viruses. Whereas the genome of the viral, it may consist of the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, either RNA, ribonucleic acid. These both may be single stranded or double stranded. It may appear either circular or linear in the shapes. Talking about the capsid virus, the nucleic acid is surrounded by the protein coat, which is called as capsid. They are of three types: helical capsid, isohedral capsid, and complex capsids. Regarding helical symmetry, filamentous capsid has a long tube of protein within the genome inside. If we see the influenza virus and rabies virus, we come to know the structure of these viruses. Isohedral is also known as cubic symmetry. These are the structure and symmetry of the viruses. Made up of isohedral capsid, has 20 triangular side in it, which can be clearly identified that this is a cubic symmetry. Now, these cubic symmetry viruses are observed in the hepatitis virus, in the HIV virus, in the B virus, and in the adenovirus. Friends, we also are aware of the structure of the viruses and the disease known as HIV. Again, we see some complex symmetry regarding these viruses. Head of the virus is too big in the complex symmetry and the tail is helical. You might have heard about the pox diseases in the children. Nowadays it has been disappeared, but these pox viruses used to infect the host cells and the disease was known as pox disease in the world. Second, this shape may be seen in the bacteriophage as well as in the pox virus. Friends, this was a short regarding the virus. We were talking about the general characters of the viruses. As far as we are concerned with the plants, we see most of the viruses caused plant diseases in the various genera and for the various species. We, we see the virus disease on the tomato plants, on the brinjal plants. Sometimes we see this disease on wild plants, on Sida acuta, and many more. When this disease occurs on the plants, the upper surface of the leaf becomes somewhat mosaic appearance. Mosaic means the changes in the color pattern of the upper part of the leaf. In severe cases, we may see the disease. Due to disease, the veins become rash and rough. After touching it, it seems to be sensed, and yellowing of the veins is seen clearly on the part of the leaf. We also know that the disease of virus or virus cause infection on the papaya plant, that is Carica papaya. When talking about the papaya plant or talking about the whole plant, that is Carica papaya, we see the virus infection on the stem, on the leaf, as well as on the fruit also. Due to this, or the infection of the virus on the papaya plant seems to be appear to be like a ring structure, that is circle structure. Numbers of circles are developed on the plant. If we observe keenly, we come to know on the fruits or on the leaf. In leaf, we see the mosaic pattern, whereas on the fruits, we see the ring pattern on the fruit, on the upper part of the fruit. So, it is also known as a ring spot of papaya plant, that is viral disease. Friends, viral diseases have been observed disaster on the human as well as on the plant also. Nowadays, the viral disease is being more popular, that is coronavirus disease, and it is spread throughout the world. Viruses can be transmitted through the air, through the insects, those insects which sucks the plant saps and wander or move to the other plants. These insects helps to transmit the virus from one plants to the another plants. Whereas the human beings, while sneezing, Also, while coughing can also transmit this disease or this virus, we also can call it as a vector of transmission. It transmits to the one individual from one individual to the another individual. There are more factors of this transmission of the viruses. Viruses are also transmitted by the plowing, harvesting, instrumentation. The sap is transmitted and it is inserted or it touched to the other plants or other material. With the help of this, also the viruses are transmitted. Friends, in today's lecture series, we have seen about the virus, history of the virus, how the viruses came in exist, how the viruses were known to the world by the Adolf Meyer, who has invented in the tobacco plant, that is tobacco mosaic plant. We have also seen about the shapes of the viruses, how there are multiple shapes of the viruses, isohedral, symmetry, and many more, that is cylindrical and many more. We also talked about the size of the viruses, which varies from 20 nanometer to 250 nanometer. So friends, this was a little general characteristics and general introduction of the viruses. In next series, we will be seeing the in next video we will talk on the economic importance of the viruses. Thank you.